When we first met in our retreat, one of the things we all said to ourselves is that I will not fail, you will not fail, we will not fail, and together we will not fail. Which is why, despite the excuses that we could have embraced in the COVID challenge, we still went ahead to outperform ourselves. Because really, excuses build bridges to nowhere, right? So what I will really say is that the lives of the people of Lagos are at stake if we do not deliver on the budget. But we are convinced we will deliver on the budget because we are clear as to how we want to do this. We have invested in our revenue channels to do this. We are investing in improving our processes and putting technology. And our performance management systems are bespoke and we have our hands on it to make sure that it happens. And it is because of that faith that we believe we will see an upside, right? Because all I have explained is to manage the downside risk, to prevent it from occurring. The special advisor to the governor, Engineer Adeyoye, would talk about the fact that there are certain roads that still need to be done. But you know, it's interesting when we talk about more that needs to be done and tend to doubt, right, the more of the budget that we propose to drive. So she will talk about that and the plans of some of those projects. Boston, I would say yes, we are working on that in terms of publishing our own GDP as a standalone. We are working with the National Bureau of Statistics. We have teams working together to make sure that happens. In terms of the rail projects, we are basically working with special funds that are available nationally with first-tier banks who have thought very deeply about the fact that they only get better if Lagos becomes more efficient. The country as a whole gets better if Lagos becomes more efficient. And so the country needs to come together to ensure, right, through its various corporate and institutional mechanisms to ensure that we're able to get the kind of funding, right, that is cheap enough to undertake that kind of project without breaking anybody's back in the future. And that's what I've done. It's completely Nigerian parties that are playing in making this funding available. We also have a very strong support from the central bank. And I think it's coming from the idea that Lagos is the gateway into Nigeria. And it's also the gateway out of Nigeria, right? And the truth is that there are many economies around the Nigerian state that will not thrive if Lagos capitulates, if the infrastructure required to drive an efficient city, a smart city, is not deployed. And we had said in one of our objectives is that we would, to the credit of Mr. Governor, who is an extremely strong negotiator, has very huge experience in the finance industry, has built a lot of relationships within and outside government, and has put in everything together with the support of a united cabinet, right, to be able to negotiate a structure that will work and deliver for Lagos. The equal things around it. So let me just give the phone first to, the mic, first to the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, and then we would go to the Special Advisor for Works, and then to Transport. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll answer the question on our revenue to debt service. I think let me start by saying that for a state like Lagos, with a lot of infrastructural, I'll use the word deficit because there's a lot that we need to do in terms of our continuous improvement drive. Debt is good, especially when we're using them for capital projects. I think what is more important is our debt sustainability benchmark. To answer the question straight, we have two benchmarks that we follow. There is the Federal Debt Management Office benchmark of 30% revenue to debt. And of course, there's the World Bank benchmark, which is 40%. So on that basis, we closed the year 2020 at 19.8%. Very, very far low from any of the benchmarks that we're talking about. And I think the question also moves, to ask about what will be the implication of the additional debt given the 2021 budget. We see ourselves landing at about 22%, given all the numbers, the revenue, and the additional debt, we will put on our activities for 2021. We see ourselves landing at 22%. Our debt charges, as shown in the budget, is about 31 billion, and our total debt, repayment, including CDSA, principal, and interest, is about 158 billion. Bloomberg asked a question on, providing clarity more about deficit financing. Of course, we know that most part of the budget is predicated and really, its foundation lies on revenue. And like I've said, we cannot depend on our own internally generated revenue or the federal transfers that we get from the federal government. We want the kind of development that Lagos needs at this time, meaning that we have to go, and borrow. The breakdown of the 192 billion deficit financing as shown in the budget, we will go out for some domestic fund, raising in the local capital market through bond, about 100 billion. We will do external loan of about 52 billion, and we will also do internal loan of about 41 billion. And everything adds up to about 192 billion as shown in the budget. So that's the breakdown. And I think what makes us highly optimistic and very excited is that all this, it's a principle in all this will be used 100% for capital projects. Thank you.
I don't know if you could extend the microphone to the Special Advisor for Works.
Thank you. The gentleman from the press asked a question relating to when Itire Road will be reconstructed, as well as when Sule Street and Shebi Olomo will be done. Going straight to Itire Road. Itire Road, I think, was built in 1999-2000, right from Ojuelegba up to the end there. And like I always say, I tell people, if you use your road well, it will serve you well. Once your road is as good as your drain. Once you toy with the drains, that road is unlikely to last you. There is no reason why that road should not last us 30 to 40 years. Right now, it's only survived 20 years, partly basically because of the habits of our people. The Honorable Commissioner for Budget said it rightly. It's important as a people, as a Lagosian, that we take ownership of all of our assets. That way, it will serve us better. We'll be able to conserve our money and then use our money to be able to open up new areas. So we've seen ourselves going back to rebuild, to reconstruct and rehabilitate roads that we have long opened, access roads that we have already opened. So I'll go straight to the question. 6 months ago, the Public Works Corporation intervened in a sectional part of Itire Road around Obele-Oniwala because there was a drainage outfall issue there, and that's all that road there. There's still one area towards the Palace of Onitire that needs to be addressed. The PwC will come in, we've started the budget, the warrants are open now. Within this first quarter, we will address that part. And then, so what we're doing essentially is because we feel that it's not the entire stretch that is bad. So the areas where we feel that they are bad and we can address, to best international practice, that road can still last us better. There's nothing wrong with that road. What you've seen that road go through, the deterioration that you've seen now, is coming from the bad habits of how we use it. So we'll address it within the first quarter of this year. That's for Itire Road. You talked about Sule Street and Shebi Olomo. That also should come, like I would say, not all roads, we cannot, as a people, we cannot afford to reconstruct everywhere. So we'll see exactly what is the degree of deterioration on that road. Does it qualify for a fresh reconstruction, or can we intervene? Can PwC, is this something beyond the PwC? If it's not, then we'll try to fix it rather than rebuild. So that road, the drainage, it has a drainage issue. So it's a total award, and that takes time. But in the meantime, we will see some intervention that we can do to give relief, because it's an alternative to the Lagos roads on Lagos Ota, the old Lagos Ota, just to be able to give an alternative route to that. So we'll begin to come into the inner ones, and I'm sure within the first quarter, PwC will work on that. Pending when, you also talked about the Lagos-Badagry Expressway. Lagos-Badagry Expressway, it's one of the roads that I think it was started in 2009, yes. And to date, so it's taken us like 12 years, we're still on that road. A lot of people will wonder why. Lagos-Badagry Expressway, I tell people, is not, when you hear Lagos-Badagry Expressway, I see a lot of bad reports about Lagos-Badagry Expressway. As a state, we committed to doing Lagos to Okoko section of the Lagos-Badagry Expressway. Beyond Okoko, up to Seme-Border, it's a federal government baby. But of course, as citizens of Lagos, we all have the right to live, to be able to go on the motorways without having stress. So we're doing our best. You must understand that there are encumbrances on that route. The section that you talked about, in January of last year, the first day of the year, we all went on an inspection, and Mr. Governor had promised to say, I promised you the year before, on my assumption of office, that come July, August, Trade Fair Junction will have been delivered. And so we'll have gotten to the Lasu Junction. The Lasu Junction by the left, Lagos bound, from Badagry, Lagos bound, the left-hand side has been delivered. It's that section up to Lasu has been delivered. What you have that has not been delivered is the flyover by Alakija bus stop. The flyover by Alakija bus stop, so you have a lot of diversion taking place. I'll tell you something, if you say there is no movement on that road, as a people, we need to look at the ways we behave, the way we react on the roadway. And I'll say it's simple. Even when the roads are free, when the roads are free, a lot of people say, oh, the roads are bad, the potholes. Even when the roads are newly constructed, no potholes, accidents still occur. They occur daily. A recent one that would rightly be a good example would be the Toyota bus stop that happened last week or so. There's nothing wrong with that road. It's a rigid pavement. It's the best pavement you can have in this climb. There's no pothole. The visibility is very good. It's during the daytime. So what exactly is it? It's a user interface. If you have drivers who are under the influence of drugs, Colorado, then it's simple. There's no amount of roads that you will build that would work. So it's the same thing when you talk about Lagos-Badagry Expressway. The articulated trucks. Who are the people driving articulated trucks? Are they being regulated? Are we in a position to actually control the things that they're doing? Because you find out the contractor who is working on Lagos-Badagry Expressway, even at the Mile 2 junction, at the Mile 2, the underpass by the Mile 2, that used to be a problem before, that we have changed the design into a rigid pavement. That section is now okay. But people cannot still enjoy the benefit. Why? Because the trucks are parking on the road. And why are the trucks parking on the road? Because the ports are blocked. So it's a lot of indiscipline that is right staring us in the face. That's why it appears nothing is working there. But until we begin to change our habits, the way we use our roads, learning to respect the codes and the rules around driving, I think we'll still have difficulty no matter the number of roads that we open up. So to that question, August 2021, that flyover should be finished. When you move beyond the DSS, Okoko, so you talked about Okoko, the encumbrance that what is slowing that Volkswagen is because you have the military barracks. You have the military barracks, so we have some encumbrances around the military barracks. As soon as the military, we are able to resolve that, we can progress, just as we're also coming out of the Lakija bus stop. All in all, but I see that section being completed before the end of this year, once we remove all of those things. So I think that answers all of the questions relating to the road, and then I will pass on the mic to my colleague to talk about the real aspect of this same Lagos-Badagry Expressway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are aware of the importance of the rail line to decongesting Lagos, and with the financial structure already put in place, we're targeting the third quarter of 2022 next year. So, I mean, all hands are on deck to ensure that the blue line as well as the red line becomes functional, especially, I mean, for the blue line, we're talking about the section from Mile 2 to Marina, and then for the red line, we're talking about the section from Agbado all the way to Winyigbo. So, third quarter 2022, we'll have those sections operational. Thank you.
Right. Is it that we're not concerned about the health sector? How come Professor Abayomi is on holiday? And then, are we not concerned about the education of our children? The Honorable Commissioner for Education is here. Who wants to fire a question in that direction? Okay. Okay, please. Then take this gentleman. Sorry.
Good afternoon, all. I'm Clara Mwachukwu and I write for The Guardian. Okay, so talking about health now, like he said, it appears the COVID expectedly has taken the central stage in health issues. However, there are other diseases or conditions that are killing Nigerians far more than the COVID. You have malaria, you have typhoid, you have hepatitis, you have HIV/AIDS, you have cancer. But all of these appear to have taken a backseat on account of the COVID pandemic. Now, when you talk about, my second question, when you talk about the smart city, I begin to wonder what kind of a smart city are we planning when 2/3 of residents in Lagos live in the slum? And when I look at your budget, just a little above 3% of your 2021 budget is for housing. And even the little that is available is also out of the reach of the common man. So what measures are the government taking to build affordable houses for the people? That's 2. Then 3, still talking about rebuilding Lagos. We all know that the governor has visited the president a couple of times in that regard. Exactly how much support is the state expecting from the federal government in terms of rebuilding Lagos, given its key position in Nigeria? And then finally, from me, we just heard that the Lagos state government is taking over the federal task force to control congestion along the Apapa axis. And I begin to wonder if the federal, with all its might, couldn't bring about change. What then gives Lagos state? What then gives Lagos state the guts or audacity, as it were, to think it could bring about change in that area? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Sunday Michael Ogu, and I write for Daily Trust newspaper. My questions are specifically to the Commissioner for Budget and the Commissioner for Health. Drawing from what the last speaker said, this goes to the Commissioner for Health. We have seen a lot of the revenue projections, I believe, depends on how quick we are able to open up in Lagos to business and other things. We are already in the second phase of what you call second wave of COVID-19. And my concern for Lagos as the 5th biggest economy in Africa is, are we making an independent plan on how to secure vaccine for Lagosians, or are we just waiting for the federal government to get whatever it gets and then using their federal character formula, share to Lagos whatever they think Lagos deserves? And if that happens, then half of the business will remain closed, and these projections will not come to fruition. My second question is to the Commissioner for Budget Planning. You have talked about the need for the balance sheets to breathe and all the ingenuity that had gone into how to finance some of the projects. And so my worry for some years really is it impossible to find other ways of financing the red and the blue lines other than government making direct budgetary provisions for them? Have we not been able to explore PPPs to bring in funds outside government provisions to completely build those lines and operate them. I want to understand the kind of funding arrangements that is available for that, so that when you talk about freeing the balance sheet, perhaps more of the money you have could go into funding other things. And then finally, we know the governor talked a whole lot about the Fort Milan Bridge last year and all the provisions that needs to be done. To the Commissioner of Transport, I was wondering if this current budget has no, the Special Advisor on Works, I was wondering if this current budget has no provisions at all for moving that project forward. I would like an update in that regard. Thank you.
I'm Saka Kalika, I write for Leadership Newspaper. Mine has to do with security. If you recollect, towards the end of, after the answer, there was a serious breakdown of law and order. And there are some volatile areas that up till now, we still have that kind of security threat. I'm talking of Agege, Axis, Yanapaja, Mushin, Ushudi, all those areas. And from findings, there are areas where you have armor tank. I think those armor tanks were there to a kind of trying to, whenever there is a riot or something erupts. So that's, but all those tanks were moved during that riot, and some of them are yet to be back to that, to the spot they were before now. So specifically, we noticed that towards the end of the year, there is increase in security threat across the state. What is government doing in the current year to ensure that we avert a kind of breakdown of law and order in the state? Then secondly, on the aspect of, I put it as cutting costs in the area of COVID-19. We've noticed that despite all what the state government is, the kind of advocacy and awareness on COVID-19, people still go about. We have some areas, especially in the hinterland, people still live life as if nothing happened. You see crowded at birthday, wedding, naming ceremony, and people who are crowded, no disregard for social distancing. And I've noticed that the prevention is always the best. You don't have to wait till when things happen, because it's easier to manage when prevention is easier to manage than after the issue has erupted. So I believe what government is doing to ensure that there is monitoring and to ensure that people have regard for this law and order in terms of social distancing and other protocol of COVID-19. Thanks.
I think we're just going to be able to take just 2 more questions. I've been reliably informed that lunch is also served. Thank you.
Emmanuel Amolo is my name, Classic FM. I had to hear this side because I was expecting the Commissioner for Transport to really address the whole talk about the smart city. I cannot understand how Lagos in 2021 can still be talking about smart city and we're having Okadas as a means of transportation. And then again, when you lap that with security, you tend to understand how much problem that we have. I listened to the Commissioner for Budget and he spoke about 2 delicate angles, and if you check through your budgets, you'll see both transport and security had a drop. I'm probably going to have to explain that to us. Just yesterday, I witnessed, it was pretty close to me, I witnessed a road robbery with these Okada people, and they robbed off someone, a Lagosian, of his belongings. And it was so easy because I remember there was a time in the state where we had the smart city cameras. I know the cameras are going to be coming back again. So, first off, please, I would like to understand the need explanation to why there was drop in both security and transport, and then also see how soon we can have these smart cities come back on, because it could help with tracking some of the criminals that we have in the state.
My name is Bamdele Ogunwusi. I write for Daily Independent Newspapers. So I don't know if we can have the commissioner's presentation than the one given to us, because the numbers don't add up. For instance, on page 12 of this, in science and technology, we have 2.502 billion here. But in what the commissioner read, it was 24. This one is 23.502, but in the one the commissioner read was 24.579 or so. So probably we'll prefer the presentation of the commissioner. Then the question really is on the overhead cost of the government. Sir, what do you think we need to do to bring this down? So that, I don't know, I'm not in government, so I just feel that if you look at the under recurrent expenditure compared to the salaries and whatever, we still have overhead, taking a larger chunk of recurrent. What do you think can be done to bring it down? Thank you.
Thank you. The answer to your first question is that the presentation will be made available. Thank you. Then the next one will be answered.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. This is directed to the Commissioner of Health, Professor Kiabayi. My name is Otoba Sebasekon from WebTV. First, I must commend Lagos State for joining the federal government to follow the January to December cycle, and I hope that will continue going forward. Now, looking at the challenge of healthcare and the fact that Lagos State has a huge population, 5th largest economy in Africa, are there plans, as you're going to the 2 loans, to leverage the market to look at pandemic bonds? One of my senior colleagues suggested that in a conversation I had with him, and I'm looking at Lagos State. If you're thinking in that direction in terms of leveraging the market to specifically look at a pandemic bond, which helps address challenges like COVID and other related disease outbreaks in terms of funding. And then finally, Professor Bayomi, one of the sessions last year, you talked a lot about public-private partnership, very critical for healthcare sector in Lagos. So far, what are the optics in terms of attracting more private equity or venture capital investments, partnering with Lagos State to expand healthcare, transform infrastructure, and invest more in research that can really put Lagos as a very healthy state that leads to an industrialized economy? Thank you.
Thank you. All the questions will be taken now, and then we'll round off with a closing remark by the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Strategy.
Okay, thank you very much for all the questions. I think one nice way to do this is to go by way of like a round robin. I will just ask my colleagues, beginning with the Commissioner for Health, to respond, and he will address all the questions that relate to health, and then we'll go to, just go around like that until it gets back, and I think that will be a nice way of closing the session. So I will just give to the Honorable Commissioner for Health, Professor Abayomi, to respond to mainly the health issues.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. And thank you for those insightful questions. I will try and address all the health questions at once. There was a question around excessive focus or attention on COVID. So I can answer that question in 2 ways. First of all, it does deserve excess attention. It's a global pandemic, and it is bringing the global economy to its knees. And if we're not careful on how we manage it in Lagos, it will bring the Lagosian economy to its knees as well, and it has already put quite a big dent in our ability to keep livelihoods sustained. So it's a topical issue, and therefore it does get attention. But let me remind you that out of our 27 general hospitals, only one of them is focused on COVID, which leaves 26 to address non-COVID medical issues. We have purposely done that to ensure that COVID does not detract from our ability to deliver correct health for the diversity of illnesses that we have in Lagos State. So the IDH, the Infectious Disease Hospital at Yaba, is the nerve center of the COVID response, where most of our COVID beds are. We have opened a small isolation center as part of Bagada, but Bagada General Hospital still remains functional as a general hospital. So what Mr. Governor did in addition to that for several months during the first wave was to remove the tariffs associated with healthcare delivery at our general hospitals and our primary healthcare facilities. Again, apart from the general hospitals, we have over 300 primary healthcare facilities, and none of them are directly involved in COVID management. They're all delivering primary healthcare to Lagosians. So we removed the tariffs for healthcare delivery to really, furthermore, ensure that we don't suffer collateral damage because of our focus of attention on COVID. So in fact, patronage to our general hospitals and our primary healthcare facilities increased because we have separated which facilities manage COVID and which can carry on managing other pathologies in Lagos. In addition, we are still focused on diversifying our expertise in health. As I said, we have 26 general hospitals. Very few of them are mono-specialist. In other words, most of our general hospitals will manage all spectrum of disease, but very few are focused on specialties. So the mother and child centers are maternal and child specialties. The Infectious Disease Research Center is a mono-specialty. We've conceptualized three more mono-specialist facilities in 2020, and we've started significant work on those. The first is the Mental Health Institute, which will be constructed at Ketu Ejiri. It's going to be the largest psychiatric hospital. Lagos State in itself does not have a psychiatric hospital, and we are paying a lot of attention as a priority to mental illness in Lagos State. So from next year, we're going to begin construction of the largest mental health and rehabilitation facility in Ketu Ejiri. We are also designing and about to develop the working drawings for the Infectious Disease Research Center, which will also be located at Yaba, which is going to focus on infectious diseases around research around infectious diseases. As you've asked the question about vaccines and drug development, as you know, we do not have a biomedical pipeline that can address these kinds of issues, which is why we do not produce vaccines, which is why we do not have vaccines, and which is why we have to wait for the countries that can develop their own vaccines to satisfy themselves first before they give us the excess of their production. So we're trying to step into that space to make sure that Lagos State can engage as an international player in the development of medical innovation and the biomedical economy. A third specialist area that we're driving at is our Oncology Center. Again, Lagos State does not have a comprehensive cancer facility, And we've started the planning, and in 2021, we're going to commence the development of the Lagos State Cancer or Oncology Comprehensive Center. There are a few more questions addressed to health, and that is the issue of keeping the Lagos State economy open with the support of an independent sourcing plan for vaccines. So Lagos State is a subnational. It, first of all, has to follow the national guidelines for the development of a rollout plan for vaccines. We are following very closely what's happening in Abuja and what the national plans are for a vaccine strategy. It is quite possible and probable that Lagos will need to supplement those plans with its own agenda. And we are making plans to do that. We are just looking at what options we have in terms of vaccines, how we're going to manage the logistics of importation and distribution of vaccines. Delivery of a vaccine strategy is not simply inject people and go away. It is these vaccines are new technology. When you inject or when you're using new technology, you must have an elaborate plan to monitor the people that have been vaccinated, because there is what's called long-term adverse reactions. For any new drug, whether it's a drug or a vaccine, it goes through several phases of safety profiling, and even after it is rolled out, you still have to monitor its safety profile for years. So it's not a simple matter of people able to very carefully monitor the people that we select to be candidates for a vaccine rollout in Lagos State. So it's not a simple process. Our first strategy to keep the economy open is the use of non-pharmaceutical interventions. Secondly, contact tracing and containment to slow down the transmission of the virus in the economy. If the virus is going to be with us for the next months or years, then it is something that we just have to get used to living with and adjust our lifestyle to accommodate this new phenomenon that we know as COVID, and run our economy side by side with the cooperation of the populace. The government can only do so much. It is up to the public to follow the clear guidelines that as government, both state and federal, we have carefully rolled out for the understanding of the people of Lagos to partner with us to ensure that we can keep COVID in a place that allows us to keep managing the public health response and the economy. Public-private partnerships. If you are following what's going on in the Lagos State response, it will become very clear to you that Lagos State has indeed a very deep public-private partnership in the COVID response in terms of the laboratories, the isolation centers. We've opened up the space. The role that the government plays, and a very important role, is regulation and public protection. So we haven't just acquired or allowed private labs to test for COVID. They have all gone through very, very stringent quality assurance to make sure that they can perform a COVID test. Many have applied and failed, but the ones that have passed, even though they're testing for COVID, we keep monitoring them every month. And if we notice any results that are going off the skew, we temporarily evaluate what's going on in that lab. We retest all their samples just to make sure that any result that's coming out of our public-private partnership laboratories is accurate. In terms of infrastructure and research, yes, we have very elaborate plans for both public-private partnership and international benchmark standards to make sure that moving forward, we have what's called Mr. Governor's Blueprint Design for Medical Infrastructure Reform. And we are pretty much fed up with building substandard medical infrastructure for Lagosians. As such, we are moving along, myself and my partners in the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure and Physical Planning, we have a very serious and well thought out plan to ensure that from now henceforth, Lagosians are going to see infrastructure that is fit for design, built according to and in compliance with international best practices and benchmarks. So that's, I think, the sum total of the health questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, I will just then thank you very much, Prof. I will just hand over to Engineer Adeyoye to talk about the Fort Milan Bridge quickly.
Thank you, It's Budget, and thank you for the gentleman who asked the question about the Fort Milan Bridge. Like I've always said, the Fort Milan Bridge was constructed well over 30 years ago, and we ought to have finished on this Fort Milan Bridge. And one of the things that has not allowed us as a people and as a nation to actually close out on that has been the lack for the transparency that we needed to show if we were getting funding by a PPP basis. That we started. We started this process exactly in November 2019, where we did ask for expression of interest, International News, Engineering News Journal. And by that way, what we declared to the whole world was that we were going to throw up the cards open, and that's what we have done. That saw the selection process from the 51 people who expressed their offers of interest, seeing us select carefully, and then we came down to 32, and 32 down to 6. So you have the 6. It's a 6-step process. We're in step 3 of the process. So you saw the EOI, you saw the analysis, and then you saw us now getting to the RFQ stage where you were asked, there were clarifiers and questions to ask, and then we're in the process of concluding the RFP process where you're getting proposals from people as to all of the alternatives. The Fort Milan Bridge is a 38-kilometer road and bridge section starting from Ebramadesoya all across to the lagoon. The estimated construction cost we know. You have, so it's not just Lagos State government just doing it. You have consultants with us in the event that there are some skills as a state that our people do not have. So you have transaction advisors. You have on the legal side, you have on the finance side, you have on the technical side, just to be able to support the government. And so I'm hoping that come before the end of third quarter, between second and third quarter of this year, we'll be able to get to a financial close where you have your reserve bidder and your preferred bidder. In the event that the preferred bidder has 1 or 2 issues, so that we're not caught in the gap in the NAP, then the reserve bidder then comes in. And I want to believe with all of the transparency that we have demonstrated and shown, I do not see the reason why this project should not fly. We've gone a lot ahead with the ESIA, because one of the criteria, anybody who is bringing their investments in, they want to see all of the ESIA procedures in place. And so the last 3-4 months, I just want us to have faith in this project. There is no reason why it should not be done. PPP has its own issues. In this climb, we have not been able to, 1 or 2 hiccups, we have not been able to, but I think that we'll be able to get out of this. But aside from that, aside from PPP, other models, we're trying other models. One fantastic model we have tried and is working is the PIIP, the Private Sector Infrastructure Improvement Partnership. It's worked well. You saw Access Bank partner with Lagos State government on the Oniru axis, and we cleaned up that road. 8 of those gridlocks have been addressed. So we've increased the network of road. You've had a road in rigid pavement. There's no reason that that road should not last us with all of the infrastructure in place, both the electricity and everything, so long as we keep taking ownership of them and we use them well. So I think that as a state, like the HC budget said, one thing that this state is known for is its resilience, ability to be able to always rise up. And I'm sure that in all of this, creativity comes in. And Mr. Governor, the leadership of this administration, we've demonstrated that we will always do things creatively to meet the yearnings of the citizenry. So I think that answers the questions on the Fort Milan Bridge. Thank you.
I think the Commissioner for Transport, Dr. Fred, will talk about why we think we can do what the task force put by the federal government could not.
Okay, I think there are 2 questions also. There's one on Okada, so I'll answer that too, but very quickly. Okay, so the difference between what the Presidential Task Force did and what Lagos is about to do is the fact that Lagos State is going in there with a strategy. So what is the number 1 issue there? Trailers go in there, there's nowhere to park. So you had the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget say that we're investing in truck parks, trailer parks. So we're rebuilding the Bola Ahmed Tinubu Park. We have a private concessionaire that's already working with MPA, and they have concession Lily Pond to them. So we're working with that concessionaire also. And then we're also negotiating another park in Ogiri. So with those 3 parks, where a call-up system has been developed that would link all the trailer parks. So the system would be that if you do not have any business in Lagos, okay, you do not come into Lagos. So when you have business in Lagos on that particular day, you'll be called into Bola Ahmed Tinubu Park, and then depending on the hour in which you have to approach the port, you will then be called into Lily Pond. So there'll be a call-off system. So all independent trailers who do not park in the trailer parks will not have access to being called to do business. And so that would simply drive all those people that are causing chaos in Apapa to actually go into the park so that they can have an opportunity to participate. So we're going in with the system. We have the private sector in place that is working with us as well as with the federal government. So it's a collaborative process between federal government, Lagos State, and the private sector. So we believe it's going to work. It just needs some order. What you're seeing in Apapa is artificial congestion. It is something that is man-made, and it's something that can be solved easily once you bring in order. Let me go to the other question of the gentleman. He talked about the budget for smart city going down. From what I'm looking at here, I'm sure the HC economic planning would validate that that's not the case. It's actually gone up. But let me actually talk about what we're doing to make transportation smarter in Lagos. So sometimes in February, March, we restricted Okada as well as Keke Napep from 6 local government areas and 9 LCDAs. So that's the starting point. One thing is pretty clear. Okada and tricycles are not in the Strategic Transport Master Plan of Lagos State. And the Strategic Transport Master Plan of Lagos State focus on building a multimodal study which hinges on our bus system, water transportation, as well as the rail. So what we're doing is the Commissioner for Economic Planning also talked about the last mile. So the last miles are the ones that go into the communities. These are the ones that will do the functions that Okada, that Okada does right now. So they are the ones that will go into the interland, the communities, and then bring people out to the major infrastructure. And so that's why so very soon you will see those buses in Lagos. We have divided Lagos into 7 zones. We are starting with about 3 zones right now, and then we'll expand it. And then over time, we'll get rid of Okadas as well as Keke Napep. So that's the plan in the Strategic Transport Master Plan for now. So let me just stop there and then hand over to, who am I handing over to?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner for Transport. We'll move very quickly because of time. The Honorable Commissioner for Education is here. I think there was a question on our recent programs in education and how that is going to contribute to human capacity, people development in the short to medium term. You might want to help take it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here. I think education has taken a significant proportion of the budget, and I think you do deserve to know what we are going to do with it and what we've done with it in the past year. I think the first thing is we just have to ramp up our infrastructure. Like the SA Works has said repeatedly, if you do not use your facilities well, they will not serve you well. In a lot of instances, the infrastructure in our schools, in the public schools, has been found to be quite inadequate, mainly due to excessive population and also due to poor maintenance culture. So one of the first things that we've done, that Mr. Governor did, was to ensure that he gave us sufficient funds to be able to at least upgrade the infrastructure of many of our schools, transform the way they look, and then we put in place a new maintenance culture that will include facilities management. And first, we'll have the vocational 5 for decades, because, apart from the building, institutions, maybe something like we're working with the construction sector in building a construction school. We're working with computer, the technical partners to build an ICT, an IT hub and school. And we are also planning a fashion design academy as well. So the other type of school that we plan to build, that we are planning, would be what we call a comprehensive school. A comprehensive school will be able to offer either academic subjects or comprehensive subjects, or even both, if you so desire. And we are also going to invest significantly in furniture, because again, in many of our schools, furniture is inadequate. So that has been our major project. But with also, in line with the themes agenda, the first E in the themes agenda is actually education and technology. So integrating both, we've started the Co-Excel program, where we're using digital technology to teach children in primary schools. And in the secondary school, we've had a pilot where we had devices given to children in underserved communities. And this year, we intend to now roll out to as many schools as possible, so that a significant amount of work can be done off school. And those are two major projects. We also have teacher training, teacher investment, because, you know, of course, the most critical factor in school is the quality of teaching and learning. So they are training, giving them modern skills, and giving them the resources to be able to teach effectively. Again, curriculum update, because we all realize that our curriculum as we have it now is somewhat obsolete. And so we've woven in 21st century skills and digital technology into our curriculum. We should launch the curriculum, which we have been working on for over a year, with various organizations, various professional bodies, various teachers groups, private schools, and creches, and so on. And we think it's quite an interesting and robust curriculum. We should launch it during the first quarter of the year. I think there's so much that we want to do, and I think by the end of the year, maybe you'll ask us questions. You didn't ask us this year. Maybe, I think transport is more glamorous than, and I accept that. We all drive on the roads, but we don't all send our children to public schools. But it's important that we improve the school system, because it will affect us if we do not do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner for Education. As we round off, I think we have a couple of questions here, which I'll just try and answer. Then I'll pass the baton back to the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Strategy. There was a question on housing, in terms of housing deficit in Lagos. I think for us, housing is, continue to be a big drive in the way we land Lagos State being a 21st century economy. I will continue to focus on that. So what we do is across, I think, 3 levels. We continue to do, partnership, PPP, ensuring that the private sector comes in and invests. And through LASRERA, we're making it easy for the private sector to invest in the housing sector. So, through improved transparency, access to capital. And we are doing something new now, which is the foreclosure law. So we are in the process of bringing in the foreclosure law, because the real issue about housing is not about affordable housing. There is, because what do we really mean by affordable housing? I think what we should be talking about is access. If a house costs 20 million, is it affordable? It's relative. But if I can pay over 20 years, will it be affordable? Will it be easy for somebody to buy it? I think that should be the focus, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. So we're trying to strengthen the mortgage culture, making it easier even for those who provide capital, who provide this finance, by ensuring that there's a foreclosure law, there's accountability. If you default, you may lose your house. So it's easy for all these things to go around. And we believe very strongly that when the foreclosure law comes into being, that it's, access to housing will be more strengthened. And we continue to also rely on the support that we get from the sovereign, support from the federal government, and all this will help to actually make us to deliver what you call affordable housing. There is a question here about, I think from Daily Trust, balance sheet, to breed. Are there other ways of financing? The financing that we have for our rail, the blue line, the red line, is what they call the DCRR is a differentiated cash reserve requirement. It's a CBN intervention, facility that is always committed to significant, projects that have significant economic, outcome or that affects people in a number of ways. And I think this qualifies to be one. Lagos State, through its novel, bespoke, approach, we're so audacious. We're the first in the country, and I've not heard of any other state that's actually tried to source for that kind of. So it's single digit, 5%, in the first instance, and that for us delivers great value for our debt financing, and also making sure that what we should have been able to deliver in 20 years will be here now, and we've been able to do that. PPP continues to be one of our strong financing model, and for the rail, I think the person who answered the question is, for you to allow private sector to come and invest, you as government need to show, need to demonstrate some kind of interest. And that's why, in the first instance, you need to start something. You need to source for, and at the end of the day, during the concessionaire period, you can recoup back all the, prior investment, and that's how it works. There's a question on security. Security, of course, without security, we'll be running a state of anarchy. There will be, there won't be law and order. So it continues to be, a key focus for this government, and this reflects in the numbers that you see in the budget. And aside the budget, there is a Lagos Security Trust Fund whereby government puts money, and we also enjoy a lot of patronage from the private sector who put in money, corporates, because they know that when Lagos is secured, their business will be secured, and that has always driven a lot of finance to the security side. Somebody asked about pandemic bonds. So there are so many products, in terms of, novel, financing outside of there. We're looking at all kinds of bonds. I think our primary focus is delivering affordable, maybe for lack of better word, cheap, sustainable finance to run our infrastructure in the state. We're looking at green bonds, we're looking at pandemic bonds, and all other kinds that the domestic market has to offer. So that answers that. I think we've been able to touch on, if not all, most of the questions that have been asked. Honorable Commissioner for Information and Technology Strategy, I'll give the microphone to you for your closing remark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner for Finance. At this point, my job is very simple. Just to thank you guys for coming and for not making our case to be like the case of that rich man. The servants to go into the streets and bring all manner of people just to fill up the table and ensure that the feast was consumed. I thank you for not making our own case to be like this. I would like to say that, as a final word, that everything that we have discussed here today is for the progress of our state, and I rely on you people, we rely on you to let the world know that Lagos State is working, and that all of the Executive Council members, led by the Governor, Mr. Vaide Sanwo-Olu, that all of us are doing everything possible to ensure that this year, Lagos continues to advance. Thank you very much, and then have a nice day at work. Bye-bye. There's lunch, please.